Hi everyone, today I'm going to give you some information regarding the investigation 2. Now, investigation 2 is actually being given to test your understanding on network and decision mathematics, which is actually on topic 4. And if you actually look at the question, you can see that the question is actually more on the real life based situation. Okay, right now for the structure of the investigation, we have two tasks. First, design your own network. Second, allocation of 4 subjects. The weightage for the investigation 2 will be 10% of your internal assessment mark. Right now, this is a group-based investigation, so we would prefer you to have 4 students in a group so that you have a group of students who are delegated for a certain part of the question, and then you all do some discussion. Now, how to have the 4 students is actually subject to your teacher's arrangement. So you have to check with your teacher, right? It can be being assigned to you, your group members, or you can find your own group members, but your teacher will actually decide for you, right? So do make sure you complete both task 1 and task 2. Now, the submission of investigation 2 have to be in soft copy, and make sure not handwritten but typed Word format is the only acceptable method. And do make sure whatever that you submitted have to actually first by giving us a Turnitin report. Okay, you submit your work into Turnitin via the eLearn and then generate a report, and with that report together with your soft copy of your investigation 2. Do remember to have the full name as per your registration in and your MAA group for all of the members in, and also put your signature here. Now let's look at the task 1. It's actually about you design your own network, right? So for the network, you have to design your own network for a project. Make sure you choose a task that you are familiar with, right? So the following here is actually some of the example of the tasks you can do, but if there are other tasks than this, you can actually use your own idea other than here. Okay, now the task, what is the criteria for the task? There must be several activities that can be done simultaneously. That means it can be done the same time, and it must be reasonably complex. Okay, the criteria, at least 10 activities, and you must have all these criteria stated here. You must have one preceding event, an activity with more than one preceding event, and more than one activity with the same preceding event. Now all this you have learned it before. You can check with topic 4 notes on this. Now make sure that you actually can identify all of the individual activities involved to complete the task, and give brief description of each of the activity, interdependencies, that means their relationship in between the activities involved, whichever is the predecessor and so on, and also the length of time, and do remember to give the unit. Now the length of time here must make sense. Now what do I mean by make sense here? That means for example, to build a house, you can't really have 5 minutes to build an actual house, right? It must actually make some common sense here. That means it must be realistic. So use your knowledge of the network to represent the information. In this case, whatever you have learned before, apply it in your project here. So you must actually identify the minimum completion time for the project, the critical path involved, and basically from here, the critical path, you know which of this is actually your critical activities. EST, earliest complete earliest starting time and latest starting time for each of the activities. Okay, and from here, when we go to the step 5 here, there must be 2 changes that you must consider in this manner. What do we mean by that? That means, should there be any change to your model, what do you actually predict the effect on the change to the minimum completion time and critical path? Now this one here is very important. What will be the effect of the minimum completion time and critical path should there be a change? And in this case, we want 2 changes. So these are some of the examples. For example, if you purchase some of the item and should there be any delay, so this is one of the example of the change. Or it can be, let's say, in terms of the manpower available to assist the project. So let's say I have more manpower. If I have more member in terms of the manpower, or I have less, right? Definitely, again, it will be having some effect on your project completion time and also the critical path. So in this case, you come up with the change, right? So these are the examples. Try not to use this example. Use your own creativity. So this is basically what we're trying to test from you all, how good you are applying whatever you learned in the project in real life. Now, when it comes to the conclusion of the first task, make sure by looking at your result, you do have a comparison of the different scenarios that you have looked into. From the different scenario, you come up with an optimal solution. So the optimal solution is depending on your scenario of your project, right? So from there on, your optimal solution, you see how reasonable it is in terms of your optimal solution. And you have some discussion on it there. And from there, you decide which one is the best scenario for the efficient completion of the task. And every project, you will know what kind of assumption that you make and what are the limitation of the model that you use. So we want you to actually explain on this in your conclusion. So for your report to be submitted, make sure you have an outline of the problem. That means you have done introduction about the problem that you are looking into, what kind of questions you want to actually answer from here. Okay, and what is the method that you actually use in order to find a solution? So in this case, it's actually got to do with mathematical model or strategy use. So for this mathematical model or strategy use, make sure you have the relevant data or information and the calculation involved and the result using the appropriate representation. So what do you think is relevant for the project network? What kind of graphic that you should use, right? And then discuss. You have the result. So you discuss about the result and you interpret the result. Okay, so when you have done that, you look at in terms of reasonable of the result, right? And then from there on, again, the limitation of the result. Okay, from there on, you come to the conclusion and make sure whatever you write here for your task 1, it must be less than or equal to 5 pages, excluding Turn-it-in report. Now for the task 2, it's actually on the allocation for 4 subjects, right? So for the 4 subjects here, you have to assign to the students accordingly. And let's look at the details here. So from the subject listed below, choose 4 common subjects, and the score is actually between 0 to 100. So you have to match all the 4 common subjects to 4 selected group members. From the chosen 4 common subjects, collect their marks respectively. And from there on, find the optimum allocation of students and 4 subjects selected here. What will be the criteria that you are looking into here? Right, so in this case, you need to spend some thinking about that. Optimum allocation. So what will be the situation that is optimum? So for example, for the score between 0 to 100, right, for the student, in what situation are you looking for? Right, so optimum, as you learned before, it can be in terms of maximum or minimum. So you need to look at the criteria. So this criteria, you need to discuss with your team members. What is it involved in terms of the 4 common subjects? What are you looking into in terms of the score? What are the criteria you are looking into? Would it be maximum or minimum? Right? And then you look for the best combination. So for your report, as the one in your task 1 before, your report must have the outline of the problem. That means you must have an intro. And under the intro, after that, you must have some question that you wish to answer with this investigation. What are those? List them in. And again, then you need to give us details about the method required to find the solution in terms of mathematical model or strategy use. So the hint for this is basically making use or apply of whatever you have learned under topic 4. Okay, and then after that, using the mathematical model and strategies that you learn, make sure you actually include the relevant data or information. You have some calculations there involved, and then you come up with the result using appropriate representation. Okay, and then with the result, make sure you discuss it through and you interpret them accordingly. And do remember to include what are your considerations about the reasonableness of your answers. And also, as usual, what are the limitations? And because they say about limitations, that means we are expecting more than one. Limitations of your results. Okay? And again, when it comes to the conclusion, right? So the results and your conclusion, and link that back to the problem of the investigation here. Okay, and as you know, your content of your book for task 2, it can be maximum up to 5 pages. Okay, and that is excluding the turning in. Right, so when you do the turning in is for the task 1 and 2, you have a turning in report that is excluding in the numbering of the pages counted here. Okay, so all the best in your investigation too.